Inside a museum in St. Petersburg, a medieval blade catches the light and behaves in ways steel is not supposed to do. Its surface ripples. These patterns, the ladder, the rose, the coffee bean, are grown directly into the metal itself. Tilt the blade, and the lines shift like light on moving water. While European crusaders wielded heavy iron broadswords, they described the curved Damascus scimitars of their opponents in a breathless register. They claimed these blades were unbreakable, impossibly sharp, and capable of slicing a falling silk scarf using only the weight of the metal. The reputation was earned. Surviving blades measure between 62 and 67 on the Rockwell hardness scale, combining a razor edge with a springy resilience that allows a sword to bend without snapping. Then, somewhere between the late 17th and the mid-19th century, production stopped. It didn't fade gradually. The technique simply vanished. Because the manufacturing chain relied on undocumented oral traditions, the knowledge was fragile. When master smiths died without training successors, or regional conflicts scattered specialist communities, the specific feel for the material was lost from living memory. 19th century European chemists attempted to study the blades in their own collections, but their experiments failed. One French metallurgist imported the raw steel ingots and found them completely unworkable. The metal was brittle and shattered under his hammer. A thousand-year-old engineering marvel had become a total blind spot. For 2 centuries, scientists could neither explain how the steel worked nor reproduce it. The path back to the secret began in the 1860s with British metallurgist Henry Clifton Sorby. Sorby used microscopy to provide the first magnified look at the steel's internal structure. He realized the watered pattern was not a surface decoration, but the physical signature of how carbon distributed itself during the forging process. It was a network of alternating hard and soft bands. This diagram shows the structure of hyper-eutectoid steel. With carbon levels roughly double those of standard modern spring steel, the excess carbon cannot mix uniformly. Instead, it organizes into discrete sheets of a hard iron-carbon compound called cementite, layered between softer iron. But identifying the structure was only half the puzzle. Scientists still couldn't explain what triggered the carbon to align into those specific, perfect bands. The answer was an invisible ghost in the chemistry. In the 1980s, a decade-long partnership between a university metallurgist and a master bladesmith finally isolated the missing variable. This visualization shows the effect of trace impurities, specifically vanadium. At concentrations as low as 40 parts per million, vanadium acts as a trigger. During the thermal cycling of the forge, the vanadium forces the cementite to nucleate and grow along specific planes, creating the rippling pattern. Without that specific trace element, the same forging technique produces a featureless, patternless blade, and that vanadium only existed in specific ore deposits in South India and Sri Lanka. Damascus was never the source. It was merely the marketplace for a steel called Wootz, developed 1,000 miles away. In Sri Lanka, archaeologists discovered massive furnaces built to exploit seasonal monsoon winds. These furnaces required no bellows. The natural airflow alone drove temperatures above 1,200 degrees Celsius, hot enough to carburize iron inside sealed clay crucibles. The ancient smiths weren't magicians, but they were master empirical engineers. They had optimized a material system by feel and result, unaware that their entire craft depended on a geological accident. In 2006, physicists at the Technical University of Dresden pushed the forensic search even further. They used high-resolution electron microscopy to examine a 17th century Damascus saber, after dissolving a small sample in acid to strip away the iron. In the residue, they found something that seemed chronologically impossible: carbon atoms arranged in perfectly cylindrical lattices. This clip shows a carbon nanotube sheathing a central cementite nanowire. These are among the strongest materials known to modern science, yet these smiths were producing them as an unintended byproduct centuries before they were deliberately synthesized in a lab in the 1990s. To be clear, this finding remains a subject of debate. Some metallurgists suggest these structures might be unusual forms of cementite rather than true nanotubes, and the result has not yet been confirmed across a wider range of blade samples. However, the confirmed microstructural facts stand. Ancient craftsmen had produced a nanostructured composite material with a level of organization that 20th century science needed electron microscopes to even perceive. If the technology was this advanced, why did the supply chain collapse? The market in Damascus was the final link in a chain that was vulnerable at every point. The first failure was geological. As specific Indian mines were exhausted, the new ore sources lacked the trace vanadium. The smiths kept following the same recipe, but the ghost in the steel was gone and the pattern simply stopped appearing. Then came the economic disruption. British colonial policies in the 18th and 19th centuries favored imported industrial goods over Indian-made steel. Discriminatory shipping rules and the loss of royal patronage for fine weaponry severed the maritime trade routes that kept the industry alive. The craft vanished slowly, like a language losing its last native speakers. Once the specific ore was gone and the knowledge chain was broken, the secrets of the crucible became a mystery to the very cultures that invented them. For over a century, modern steel design has prioritized uniformity, making every part of a metal block identical. But Wootz utilized a strategy called hierarchical heterogeneity, building the material from alternating hard and soft layers. In this sustain, you can see the payoff. The uniform block snaps under stress, but the layered structure flexes. Today, advanced labs are copying this exact ancient method to 3D print ultra-strong alloys that defeat the usual trade-off between strength and ductility. This validates the thousands of years of trial and error that took place in those early furnaces. The smiths weren't using crude methods. They were refining an engineering solution that modern labs are only now beginning to adopt. In the end, Wootz Damascus is an empirical blueprint. It stands as a materials engineering solution that predated first principles by a millennium, and it is now serving as the template for the high-performance steels of the future.